3, and we are Steve Irwin's fan club, and we're going to be talking about Schaub's Nature Preserve today. Team leaders are me, Kayla McShura.
I'm Hunter Schwartz.
I'm Brian Baker.
I'm Lana Blanchard.
I'm Essen Arshad.
I'm Mitch Thompson.
I'm Kyle O'Brien.
I'm Mariam Hardin.
I'm Kibi Muhammad.
Sarah Burton. Okay, and this is the video we made for our presentation. So the site is located in between University and Texas on Ashburn Avenue. It's approximately 1.5 miles from campus, and there is a bus stop located at the end of the street. And we based our research off of the quadruple net value. So first we're going to talk about the economics of the project, which include rental income streams, property value, and construction value. Second, we're going to go over the social aspects of the site, which are safety, education, pedestrian comfort. Third, we're going to do the environmental values of it, which is sustainability of the area, preservation, and water management. And lastly, we're going to go over the five senses that trigger senses. Sorry, I just messed up.
Before we go into the elements, I just want to go over a quick overview of the history. Some of this was already covered in the video. I just want to go over it. So in 1996, Dr. Schaub was a professor here at A&M, and he retired. And then in 2007, due to complications with Alzheimer's, he did pass away, unfortunately. But in 2009, there was a will, 7.44 acres of land was donated to the university at 906 Ashburn Avenue. And then in 2011, a couple of professors got together with a couple classes, and a couple designs were proposed. And in 2011, Dr. Michael Murphy was hired as a landscape architect to design the preserve. In 2012, construction began, and in 2014, there was an opening ceremony for the park.
So Mitch and I were tasked with the economic value of the Schaub Nature Preserve presentation. And two major factors we looked at were neighborhood influence and economic impact. With the neighborhood influence, we looked at real estate transactions and investments. And we also looked at how the surrounding area's value was increased, but that the surrounding area was also already intact. With the economic impact, we looked at operations management value, construction value, and the before and after the input of Schaub Nature Preserve.
And this is the main area. As you can see, Schaub Nature Preserve is right there, and then the arrows are pointing to the main parts of what we did our research on, the economic view of the adjacent areas, and then across the street, and then everything outside of this picture should be within a 5-foot walk.
So with neighborhood influence, we could not find any recent transactions due to the fact that the preserve is still fairly new to the neighborhood. The surrounding neighborhood was also already intact after the completion of Schaub Nature Preserve. And then investments can also not be determined. So therefore, but we did conclude that the surrounding area's value has increased over the past years. So therefore, it is a positive for future investments. The total construction value was estimated around $406,000. We ended up paying about $381,000. And then after the completion of the Schaub Nature Reserve, the total construction impact was $900,000. There was no fee for the design of the project, which in the end saved us around $20,000. And now Schaub Nature Reserve is used as classroom experience. Therefore, there's no economic impact for the conceptual design.
And there's no tourism money generated just because, I mean, it's pretty much free to get to the park. All you have to do is walk in. It's free to everybody. There's also no rate sales and rents. They rent it out to veterans that go to the school that are in the architecture program, but their rent is free. And we don't really know how many jobs were created just because it was worked on by students as students came in, and they worked on the preserve as they were here as a student. And that's pretty much it. And this is the rate, sales, and rents before and after the adjacent properties. It had a rate of 85%. That's how many people lived there. And then after, I couldn't find any information on that. The sales before the adjacent properties were $206,000. After it went up, it increased to $235,000. And currently it's at $291,000, so it just keeps on increasing. The rents were $1,800 before and after, and then within a 5-minute walk, same thing with the rates, 85%, couldn't find the after. The before sales was $370,000, after $369,000, which went down $1,000, and I couldn't find the current. And then the rents were $1,600 to $1,300, so it went down just a little bit. And then the property values have decreased at Schaub Nature Preserve. The adjacent has increased. across the street has increased, and also within a 5-minute walk has decreased just from everything around the neighborhood.
So this is a map using Zillow.com, looking as of November 2018 at the surrounding areas and like the estimated values of those properties. And if you were to find a similar picture prior to 2014, you would see that all of the surrounding areas' values have increased since then.
Okay, so Aaron and I were tasked with the social and cultural aspect of the preserve. To delve into that, we're going to go over the safety and security, public access, connectivity, health, education, public visitation involvement, residential proximity, public art, lucky for you, we already went over the history, and pedestrian comfort. So with safety and security, there's no security staff in place. It is a neighborhood park, so it's pretty low-key. There doesn't need to be a bunch of police going over there every day at all hours. However, that being said, it would be helpful if there was some sort of camera or maybe a trooper that went perused around every hour or every other hour. The area is well lit in the evening with plenty of light posts at the front. If you were to go further back into the area where the prairie is, you might feel a little bit differently, but if you were to just take a couple laps around that front area, around the flat green space, there is plenty of light. And during the day, there's an abundant amount of sunlight covering the entire area.
Okay, and I'm going to be covering the public access and connectivity. So, like she said, there isn't really a bus stop that goes directly to the park. It's more of like down the street. But you can always OFO there, or if you have your own bike, you can take your bike. But there are no bike racks at the park specifically, so I guess if you had an OFO, you could just leave it there. There are no trail connections leading up to the park, so there isn't a way for you to, like, if you wanted to ride your bike, probably the only way would be like just to take the main roads. And like she said, there's a very few lights in the park itself, but just the street lights leading up to it.
With health, there is about a mile-long trail that people can use, a large open green space in the front that can be utilized for exercise spaces, great for like a game of soccer or yoga. There's no dog park on site, but that didn't stop me from taking my dog, so as long as they're on a leash, they're fine. And there's abundant amount of vegetation, including different types of trees, shrubbery, flowers, all sorts of wildlife.
As far as education goes, there are high levels of coordination between the university and the park. Just like we mentioned before, the LAEP department has a lot of connections with the park. They were responsible for the development of it. But there are currently no educational programs offered by the park itself.
There are plenty of gazebos that are ideal for all sorts of things. That could be like picnics, studying, date nights, other forms of socialization. Lots of space to host gatherings. The LAUP department is heavily involved. This is an example of one gathering, the 2015 Howdy Luncheon. So plenty of space that can be utilized for all sorts of different gatherings.
And then residential proximity. So, like we mentioned before, there's one residential unit inside the park, and approximately 180 units within a 5-minute walk to 0.245 miles. And then approximately 500 units within a 10-mile walk. And I just wanted to go over another element about social cultural. So, by a show of hands, how many people have heard of the park before we took this class? Okay, that's what I thought. Just because I feel like if the park is more of like an out of sight, out of mind type thing. If it was like on Wellborn Road or George Bush, like you might have known about it. But since it's like further back in like a smaller community and neighborhood, we don't really know a lot about it. And I feel like Mr. Booth had mentioned before in this class, like you can have the best project ever, but if you don't have like the marketing aspects to it, you don't have people knowing about it, it's really like let's say it's a big downside. So I feel like if someone did a better job of like marketing the park to students or to locals, even to visitors, it'd have a better impact on the community as a whole. Maybe like it is 2018, so like a social media aspect. I know like maybe a Facebook page, if someone had about the park, they keep updates about it, have like pictures of people, like, well, I bet you more than 90% of the residents in College Station don't even know about the park. So if they knew about it, maybe they'd take their kids or their family and they just go and take a nice walk. And then, yeah, just so updates. So maybe if more people started going, maybe they'd have more events there and they could keep that social media page to have updates for the park.
With public art, it doesn't really exist in this area, but I think that this is a great place that the park can improve. There's plenty of space that can be utilized for public art installations. Great way to bring maybe things that the visualization program are working on. Take different like painting classes to paint nature that's there in the park. So this is definitely an area that can be utilized more. There's just nothing present at the moment. And then for pedestrian comfort, plenty of shade due to tree coverage as well as open sunlight. There are gazebos that provide semi-covered seating. Gravel pathways, I believe that these are both positive and negative. Right now they're not very upkept very well, so they're like easy. There was a lot of water puddles one day when I went that were hard to walk around. Although the park is ADA accessed, it might be difficult if someone had a wheelchair or something on that gravel path, especially if it was so wet like it was when we went. And the park may be utilized by bicyclists, but there's no bike rack present, so people just end up parking their bikes right at the front, loose.
My name's Kiwi. We're doing the environmental, me and Sarah. So for a key aspect in the environmental section would be preservation. Here's a little quote taken directly from the LAUP page on the TAMU page for David Shaw Park. The creation, maintenance, and preservation and management of the property as a public parkland and nature conservation area. That's like the purpose of this park. So preservation is a really good aspect here. So what we did is we got a GIS map of the park and actually went in and highlighted areas of green space. We figured out that 81% of the area is green space, excluding the existing residents. So this area right here is the undisturbed natural area, that's 4.7 acres. The developed park area, that's including the East Prairie, West Prairie, Rain Garden, and all that equals 6.09 acres, and that divided by the total of about 8 acres is about 81%. This area down here is really important for carbon sequestration, which is the transfer from carbon vapor in the air into liquid form or solid form held by the trees. And we figured that this whole area being 4.65 acres sequestrated about 11 tons of carbon a year, so pretty important.
Again, since the park is primarily used for preservation, the majority of vegetation that's found naturally on site is preserved on site. In addition to that, the construction drawings prepared by Michael Murphy included a landscape plan, which is, there's an excerpt here, and 37, I think, unique plant species, you can see an excerpt, top corner, are listed, and these are all species that are designed to flourish in College Station and are designed to require little to no irrigation, though there is a system in place which we'll talk about on the next slide. And like Kiwi said, the majority of the site is undeveloped, but even the parts that are developed take water management into strong account, and pretty much every surface at the park is at least semi-permeable. You can see a picture here of the brick pavers and decomposed granite, which allow rainwater to filter through. And in addition to that, there's the rain garden that was completed by students in 2015, which is designed to help with absorption. And you can see a picture here of how pretty it was when it was completed, but unfortunately, like we've talked about, maintenance is a concern at the park and it's currently overgrown, but probably still helping with absorption. And then, like I mentioned, there is an automated irrigation system that is detailed in the plans as well. It kind of follows the walking paths, and the entire site is designed to drain to the stream that's located in that back undeveloped area. And so, again, stormwater management's not really an issue. And finally, in addition to preservation, the site was specifically intended to be used for education. And that has happened to varying degrees. We've mentioned the partnership with A&M and the urban planning department, and so professors are able to apply for these grant programs and take their students out to work on projects, or like we're doing research at CHOB, but beyond that, there aren't really any educational programs. There is signage within the site, such as This one which describes the rain gardens, there's one for the boardwalk and for prairie restoration, so that's a little bit of an interactive element that helps with education, and again, the site is certified as a wildlife habitat.
Alright, so me and Lana were tasked with the sensory part of the project. The sensory aspect of the project has the potential to generate immediate benefits to the return on perception through smell, sight, sound, touch, and taste. So the park is roughly 2.5 acres of developed landscape, and there are various plant types within these few acres, but they're more for a visual aspect. You can't really smell them. Walking around, you can smell the cedar trees and the pollen associated with them, and the grass can be refreshing. Since there's no trash facilities on or near the site, there are no real bad odors affecting your sense of smell. And there are no restaurants or food vendors nearby. Throughout the park, there's a gravel, concrete, and brick walkway allowing you to walk, bike, and run. This path creates an opportunity for you to explore and take in the grounds of the park and an opportunity to touch plants. There are multiple seating areas and picnic tables with gazebos above them. And it's handicap accessible. It's a great place to interact with nature.
Okay, and for the sound, the park is overall pretty quiet and peaceful. Occasionally you can hear birds chirping and like bugs and insects and probably other wildlife creatures. The only disturbing part that would disrupt like the peaceful part of the nature preserve is like the cars and bikes driving by the nearby road. Wellborn is about 2.5 miles away, so you can't really hear the train by. And then the other thing is you can probably hear footsteps from the gravel path. The visual aspect, the gazebo picnic tables and benches within the preserve allow visitors, give a visual sense that you can come here, relax, eat and study and socialize here. The boardwalk and seating area also serves as a quiet, shaded space, and this also gives another view of the interior of the rain garden. And overall, there's a lot of greenery in the park with the plants, but in order to keep the quality of the greenery, there has to be a lot of maintenance by weeding, mowing, and trimming of the trees and the plants. Okay, and then we didn't have anything for the taste, other than if you bring your own food or if there's like food trucks by for like events and things like that.
Alright guys, so we did have a couple recommendations for the park. As we said before, there wasn't really a dog park, and so with that, there wasn't even really any pet waste collection stations. Also, in the area, especially in College Station, people like to ride bikes, but there happen to be no bike racks, which we kind of found strange. And I think that would help bring people into the area. Also, we're kind of looking at it in the covered areas of the gazebos there, they're not really fully covered. So, I mean, if it starts to rain and you're trying to run to one of those gazebos, and then you finally get under it, and you're still going to be getting wet because there's no hard cover. So we're thinking maybe if they were able to put some sort of hard cover shelter under there, just so you could sit out and wait out a storm. Another one we had was maybe add some more colorful plants that smell good. Granted, we are going in November or October to look at these, so there are probably some there, but maybe having some more that are blooming year-round. An important one that we thought was would be really cool is to have a partnership with maybe some nearby schools or clubs like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, anything like that. And we can use them kind of as labor almost and help clean out the rain garden, as well as to help educate the public. Just to bring a little bit more people into the park, let them know that it's there. And then finally, we had some small maintenance projects, such as repainting gazebos and maybe doing a little bit of maintenance on the benches, just to kind of make it more attractive to people and try to attract people that way. So in conclusion, we've seen a rise in land property value. The actual construction cost of the project was $380,000, which is pretty big, and considering we even got it down from what they estimated is fantastic. It is a pretty secure place, but there is no security staff. Like we said before, it's basically just kind of people are the eyes and ears of the park, and so if something happens, they're the active security. There are multiple trails, you know, walking, running, and biking trails that try to help promote healthy behavior. And one thing that was awesome was 81% of the park is green space, with a lot of that being undisturbed, which for being a natural preservation is pretty important. And then there's also 37 different types of plants we see, smell and touch, and we like to try to get that up, maybe up to 50 or so. And that way there'd be just a little bit more there to see. You can hear and see the cars driving by, but there aren't a whole lot going down that road, and so it's mainly just Texas back behind there. And there is a little shed gazebo, and you know, a bunch of different views that you get to see as you're walking through the park. Kind of attract people there. Any questions?
On the economic side, there was a couple of those facts that you had, like the after you didn't have anything for it. Do you know why you couldn't find anything for it?
It was just mainly everything I tried to look up. I was going to different websites. I just couldn't find any information on it. It was just mainly
Yeah.
that.
Do you think they do like every 5 years or something? They update it?
I tried looking that up too, but I couldn't see anything on every 5 years. I think they had one on, I mean, they're probably going to start having one on every 5 years. It was built in 2014, so it hasn't been 5 years yet. So I guess we have to just wait one more year and probably come out.
Any other questions?
All right.